where I insist on Black cultural sovereignty. And I have come across a lot of white people who will tell me that that means that I am racist. I'm like, no, it's not racism. This is the thing. I'm not thinking like you. I'm not fighting fire with fire. I'm looking at history from a cause and effect perspective, and our music is derived from our experience. We were taken from several countries, our languages were stolen, families destroyed, brought here, forced to work for nothing for hundreds of years, then emancipated. Things got better for a little while, but then they couldn't have that. So then they brought in, Jim Crow, separate but equal, where they had to crush us down again. And in separating us, the separate but equal, that instance where we were culturally separated from white people, that was when we created the most beautiful cultural manifestations. This is when we get, Claude McKay, Langston Hughes. This is when Black people were leaving the country in droves for Liberia up until the 30s and 40s.
Do you know that telling a story is one of the most powerful ways to connect with your audience? Do you know that the human brain processes story much more easily and quickly than facts and figure? Stories are a great way to engage your audience, get them interested in your products and services, and inspire them to take action. A good story will help you create more compelling content that can be shared on social media or through other channels. And it's not just about telling a compelling story, it's also about knowing how to tell it effectively. Now, do you want to better connect with your audience? Then join us on our online training class, Storytelling for Content Creators and Digital Entrepreneurs. Come to obehiair14.com/storytelling and learn how to leverage your storytelling skill to earn more as a content creator and digital entrepreneur. Storytelling is a powerful way to connect with your audience, so let's explore it together. See you in the class.
This is where we develop jazz, rhythm and blues, gospel, rock and roll. And once integration happened, which was really assimilation, right? Say when they integrated Major League Baseball, they didn't take in the separate Black teams wholesale and bring them into Major League Baseball. No, no, no. They chose one who could handle the abuse that was going to come from white people who were never going to be held accountable for the horrible things that they were going to do. That would be Jackie Robinson. They brought him into the Brooklyn Dodgers knowing that he was going to accept what was happening to him and just smile, be magnanimous, and just play baseball. So when they did that, they started bringing in Black players slowly but surely, also Latino players. And in doing so, they destroyed these Black institutions that were forced under the Jim Crow era. So they destroyed these Black institutions to enrich white institutions and never had any check. In fact, to this day, they're still struggling to add the amazing Black players who had to exist under that system into the Hall of Fame. And so that aspect of you can take what you want and leave the rest like it's a salad bar, that doesn't fly. That's not solving the problem, and that's not integral. What we need is real justice. And so how these people feel about how we present it, or they say that I'm angry or that I'm crazy, or they say all these other things to deny the validity of my information, but it doesn't make what I said any less true or any less potent, specifically because I do not couch it in a way that is designed for their comfort, because they are enslaved by their sense of comfort. And in order for them to be comfortable, in order for them to feel tall, I have to be on my knees, for which I refuse and have to be punished. Case in point, there had been no ethnographic research that I know of that was done by Black people at Angola State Penitentiary in Louisiana, where I did my research for my doctorate. It's 18,000 acres. It's about the size of Manhattan, 36 square miles, and Black men have been working the land there since 1820. It's a horrible place, and it is a plantation based off of the language of the 13th Amendment, which says that slavery is illegal except as punishment for a crime, because they had to have something to do with the 4 million people who were now considered citizens upon emancipation, 2 million of them being male. So this is how we end up in the the prison industrial complex which we have. In order for me to get in there to do the work that I did, to talk to elders of my father and grandfather's age, I had to allow these people to believe that I was white. Because I originally wanted to go in there and record hip hop, because at the time I was 33 and half the inmates were 33 or younger. And I know that most from my generation don't play instruments or think musically anymore. It's very rare, especially since we became more secular after the 60s, because most black people who really learned to play music well learned in church. And without that influence, it just disappears. And then when they take the music programs out of the schools in the cities, the kids just have their parents' record collections and the oral tradition, which is how we get hip hop. Uh, I wanted to record hip hop in the prison to see what the young people were doing. But then they told me, oh, we don't have that here, but we do have some amazing gospel music, which let me know that they thought that I was white, because nothing makes Southern whites happier than black people singing about Jesus, because it means we're under control. And my last name is Atkinson, which is a British name. And on the phone, they couldn't tell because I know how to code switch. I was raised in California, but my sensibility is Louisiana. And so they didn't know that I was black. And once I got there, I got what I call the stare. And most black people who know how to code switch and set interviews up and things of that nature on the phone, and then they go for the face to face and they get that, where you can tell that this person is completely out of sorts because you are not what they expected. And now they're in their head and thinking emotionally. And so usually what happens is you have to make a self-deprecating joke because you know, and they know that you know, and they're afraid because now they don't have anything in their mindset to deal with the situation. They don't have the ability to adapt to the situation and move on. And it's clear that they don't see me as a human being. Otherwise, it wouldn't be an issue. They would just say, oh, that's who you are. Let's talk. But the fact that they get so shocked, it lets me know what's happening here, right? It's just it's a tale, and it's written all over their face because they're that raggedy. And in order for black people to succeed, you have to use what W. E. Du Bois coined as the double consciousness. You have to know how they think before they think it, so you can outmaneuver them, which means you have to work twice as hard to get half as far. But you don't want to incur their wrath or any of their whackness because they're not accountable. Even if you can prove that they're wrong and they will admit to you face to face, if it comes down to it in the grand scheme of things in a public sense, they'll never, ever give up that power. And so they saw me, they came out and looked, went back, came out and looked again. And on the third time, Daniel Atkinson, and I go, that's me. And I got that look, and I'm like, oh. So then I end up in in the prison, working with the guys, talking to them about their philosophy, recording music, and all these sorts of things. And first of all, they were very skeptical of me because they're not used to dealing with black people coming in there to do this kind of work. And so they'd be poking at me. What are you doing? Why are you doing this? And so I tell them. And then after they were satisfied, they would give me encoded messages through patois, through Bible verses, just vernacular, or just body language, what was really happening. And which made me quite nervous because they were putting an extra burden on me because they're like, okay, do you really want to know? Here it is, which was really difficult to deal with. That plantation was at the end of a 22-mile dead end road. And every day I'd have to get the courage to go in there by myself, knowing that how many hundreds of thousands of black men have gone up that road and have never come out again. And no one knows who they are. Uh, So I would be talking to inmates or working with my equipment or something. I'd look back and the classification officer who was assigned to me would be reading my field notes as though I had no right to privacy. And I had to accept that because they were looking for a reason to get rid of me. So I said, fine, I'll deal with this, because they were upset with me for not being black in an acceptable way, right? Like, how dare I trick them? I didn't trick them, I just didn't disclose. So I said, okay, if that's how it's going to be, then I wrote my field notes in Japanese, because at the time, I was pretty good with Japanese. My first wife was from Japan, and her family spoke no English. So I learned the language. And so it proved to be really useful for me to take down this very sensitive data that I knew that if they read and saw, they would punish these men for. And I wanted to protect the integrity of the data and protect those men who were taking a great risk to tell me these things about the better than before, but still pretty horrific conditions in that prison. And I could see the anger on the classification officer's face when, after I decided to do that on the second day, she went and looked where I would take some notes in English, but anything that was of any real importance was written in Japanese. And I could see the anger on her face because I was not allowing her. Right, right, right. And so she was really angry with me. And so the second trip, it was 10 months of begging, and they kept losing my application. They couldn't see the value in my work, but it took a letter from the head of the Smithsonian, where my work now is housed, to get back in. And I know white ethnographers, white graduate students who had unfettered access, who were able to make video, who had all kinds of advantages that I didn't have, but they had no cultural insight. And one of them, right, and one of them wanted to use my insight. And I was glad to share it because, the more the merrier. I can't put a dollar value on this. If you're going to write the story with integrity and you're going to get it into the hands and hearts and minds of other people, who am I to say to hold on to this like I own it? No, you can have it so long as you give me respect, you tell people where you got it from, and you share your access with me, because I have an issue with access. I'll trade you my insight for your access. They wouldn't do it. It was always a something for nothing kind of thing, which I'm used to. And so I just kept going, kept it locked and kept going.